So in order for you to be able to prove some things, you're going to have to exist in a world that has certain parameters. Would you agree? You'd have to say yes. Now, in order to prove things, you're going to have an ultimate foundation for intelligibility. And that's going to mean that there's going to be something that is fundamentally absolute that provides for all dependency states. So when you say that you can't prove God, that statement is claiming that proof is viable. So explain to me what is fundamentally absolute that would provide the foundation for the viability and intelligibility of proof. What is it? Do you have an answer?
I don't.
Well, if you don't, then then I just demonstrated you to the impossibility of the contrary that the God of the Bible exists. Your only option for intelligibility, meaningfulness, proof, reason, truth, is to accept that the God of the Bible exists. Because if you don't, then you're going to have to show me what's your grounds for intelligibility. If you say to me, well, what's your grounds for intelligibility? I'll say, well, the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible has a mind. He has a purpose. He has a plan. He created this world to operate. He instituted causality. He instituted laws of nature, that things operate in law-like ways. He's made man in his image to think like himself at a foundational level. And there are certain principles or rules of thinking or logic that we follow because our mind is like God's, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you don't accept that, then I'm going to want to know, what is it that does exist that makes God unnecessary? You remember how many times atheists will say, no God needed, God of the gaps, no God, Well, good. I want to know that for any concept that you put forth from your mouth, whether it's implicit or explicit, what's its ground? What is it that foundationally exists that is not God that provides for any of these dependency statements? And if you tell me you don't know, then your claim that God is unreasonable to be believed in, that statement is without reason. You see the problem? If you tell me God is unworthy of belief, well, is that statement worthy of belief? Is the statement God is unworthy of belief worthy of being believed? What's the basis for reason? What's the reason for belief? What's the basis for meaningfulness, viability, and intelligibility? What is it that is ultimate in existence that provides for these things? And if you say, well, I don't know, then your statement, the statement, well, God is unworthy of belief, that statement is unworthy of belief as well. So I've taken your criterion that you use to say God is unworthy of belief, and I have used that criterion to show that that statement you made is unworthy of belief. See the problem, Mr. Godless?
I do.
Yeah, I've just shown you how incoherent atheism is.
And that's exactly why I'm here. I'm just trying to understand.
I'm not picking on you. I'm just trying to help you. The reason why you should believe in God is because without God, nothing is worthy of belief. God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility of anything. And it's not just any God, it's going to have to be the God of the Bible. Because the God of the Bible is the only God who has given revelation throughout human history and has the essential properties and attributes foundationally that will provide for intelligibility. Because if you sit there and say, well, I don't believe in the God of the Bible, I say, good. Tell me what God you believe in. But you see, you don't believe in other gods.
What makes the God of the Bible the only way, though? Why are the other ones false?
Why? Because first of all, the God of the Bible has revealed in natural and special revelation that he exists. In addition, he has revealed that they don't exist. Thirdly, He has revealed that the denial of him leads to complete metaphysical collapse, or the complete unintelligibility, which we call foolishness. If you don't accept the God of the Bible, you can't offer another worldview that you don't hold to. If you say, well, I hold to worldview B, I don't believe in the God of the Bible, and then I show you how worldview B is vacuous, you can't appeal to worldview C because you already reject that worldview. And whatever proposition you make, that proposition will only be substantive or have viability from the worldview that it's being spoken from. So worldview K cannot utter that worldview W is a potential actual. That would be a contradiction in terms. Okay, so the God of the Bible has revealed himself. Everything is evidence for God. Everything. And if somebody says, well, I don't accept that, say, good, then then the non-acceptance of that means that nothing is evidence for God. So I'm saying everything is evidence for God because without God, without the God of the Bible, the apple on the counter doesn't mean anything. And if somebody says, well, that's ridiculous, I'm an atheist, and I can understand that the apple, say, good. Apple on the counter. Apple and counter are both classes of things. That the object that is in relation to the other object below it are members of a class. Okay? And a class is a set of entities that share the same properties and attributes secured by some common source. So since you didn't say the thing on the other thing, you said the apple on the counter. In order for there to be an apple and a counter to be members of a class, there have to be laws of nature. And there have to be causal relations. Well, where do you get laws of nature from? You can't sit there and appeal to your sense perception because you'd have to believe in laws of nature first before you could even talk about eyesight. Now, the God of the Bible has revealed that he instituted laws of nature. And in fact, he made you and I to think in terms of laws of nature at a rudimentary level that we can't think otherwise. You show me a person who lives and gets up every morning and does things, and I'll show you somebody who believes in the uniformity of nature. Because if you so much as get up out of bed, you stand up out of bed, you have an expectation that you're not going to float off. So the point is this is the reason why you see, if you don't accept the God of the Bible, I could spend all day giving you evidences as to why you should believe in the Bible, talking about Jesus' fulfilled prophecies or the reliability of the New Testament, right? Or that the New Testament is filled with thousands of incidental details, which would have been next to impossible for a fabricator to concoct. Okay. But you see, at the end of the day, you'll just dismiss it because you've already concluded there's no God. I could even convince you that Jesus Christ rose again from the dead. You could say, yeah, all right, fine. Some guy named Jesus rose again from the dead, and they thought he was the Son of God. You know, in a grand universe, sometimes really strange things happen. And some guy came back from the dead, and they thought he was the Son of God. See, whatever evidence I present to you, it'll just be explained away. It's the same mentality that flat earthers have. It doesn't matter what powerful evidences that you present to flat earthers. No, the earth is flat. No. So there's only one thing left to do, and that's to show you that the denial of the proposition, the God of the Bible exists, the denial, the non-acceptance of that leads to complete incoherency. The very thing that atheists claim is that, the atheist says, I want a reason, I want good reasons to believe in God. Well, the non-belief in the God of the Bible means that there are no reasons for reasons. There's no reason for reason. There's a very clever atheist that I saw recently, his video I was watching. He starts off by saying, I'm an atheist. I don't have any good reasons to believe in God. Can you give me good reasons? And all he's simply doing is he's playing a little game. He says, give me your list of evidences, and one by one, I'm going to go, But the point is, when he says that he wants good reasons to believe in God, what is his reason to believe that there's a foundation in reality that provides for reason? The answer is he has none. So on the one hand, he's claiming he wants reasons to believe in God. He's pretending that he's an honest player in the game. Yet when it comes to his model of reality, of not God, there's no basis for reason. None whatsoever. Even if you appeal to an evolutionary scenario, if evolution is true, you have no reason to trust your reason, because evolution doesn't select for truth. It doesn't select for reason. It selects for fitness and action. So a higher level organism could have a false reason for something, but if the action leads to survival, it'll reproduce. Then, of course, there's no reason to believe in laws of nature. There's no reason that an atheist can give that there are causal relations and connections between events. How are they going to do so? They're going to say, well, I can see causation? Well, wait a minute. How can you see something unless you establish first that there's causality? So the atheist position is self-defeating. It's self-imploding. It destroys itself. So do you understand why you have a compelling reason to abandon atheism?
Yeah, I understand.
Atheists go, well, God is, you haven't given me evidence for God. Well, in that statement, that's a declaration that nothing constitutes evidence for God. How'd they reach that conclusion? If I say to you, or I say to an atheist, everything's evidence for God, they'll say, oh, really? How so? But you see, they won't ask themselves that question. If they say, well, there's no evidence for God, say, good, how'd you reach that conclusion? And then what they'll do is they'll try to backpedal the proposition to a mental state, saying no evidence has been presented to me yet. Say, okay, good. Tell me why the moon, when you see the moon and everything else don't constitute having a causal relation with God. How is that? And what the typical atheist will do is say, well, you're shifting the burden of proof. No, I'm not. If your position as an atheist, I'm an atheist because there's no evidence for God. Good. How did you come to that conclusion? See, there's no neutrality here. Many atheists try to pretend that they're just neutral bystanders and that they're withholding belief or have a rejection of belief in God until and if God is demonstrated. But unfortunately, they're holding to the not God position. What demonstrated that? The answer is nothing. And at this point, the atheist will say, oh, well, I just have a lack of belief. No, it's not just a lack of belief. Because if you lack belief in God, that position entails the falsity of God. To lack belief in God entails the falsity of God. Why? It's because that person is claiming that they can reason without the affirmation of God as the origin point. Well, if you can reason about one thing, just one thing, the apple on the counter, without affirming God as the origin point, then it necessarily follows from that God does not exist. Because if one fact is attainable without reference to God as the origin point, then no other facts will have their origin point in God. Because by definition, God is the origin point for all facts. So either all facts have their origin in God, or all facts do not have their origin in God. So if one fact doesn't have its origin in God, then no facts do. So you see, the atheists who try to maintain, they try to soft soap their atheism as not strong atheism, but they'll say, "Oh, I'm just an agnostic atheist." No, you're not. You're a full blown atheist. Not you, but I'm just saying, atheist. Everyone's. If you're not a theist, then you're an atheist. Even agnostics are atheists. They just don't realize it. If we can sit there and say, I reason that God's existence is undetermined, okay, that statement necessarily follows God does not exist. Because if you can reason without affirming God as the starting point, then God doesn't exist. And so the very criterion that the atheist and the agnostic use to withhold belief in God, saying God is unworthy of belief because God's not rationally justified, God's not proven. Okay, fine. So what is it that is the foundation of reason? And how's that justified? And they'll go, well, I don't know. We'll say, good, then you don't have proof for your claim that God can't be proven. And in fact, you don't have proof that proof is even a viable concept. So atheism and agnosticism are like piranhas that they turn on themselves and they eat themselves. So atheism is incoherent.